Playful design is about finding playful solutions to problems. It would be right to assume that games are inherently playful. We play them, don't we? But I do believe that when it comes to designing games, there are different ways to approach the design process. Some parts of games benefit from a more utilitarian approach. That is to say, designing with a focus on utility, or the function of a feature. Other parts could benefit from playful or even silly design. So today, I'll be talking a bit about silly design in games. I'll be splitting them into two categories: silly core mechanics and silly progressive mechanics. The distinction between core and progressive mechanics is quite useful when talking about game design. A core mechanic is defined as that which you are actively doing in the game. Running, jumping, dodge, rolling, that sort of stuff. A progressive mechanic is that which drives the dynamic progression of a game. Getting to the end of a level will allow you to enter the next one. Shooting arrows will make you run out of arrows. Core and progressive mechanics together shape what we think of as gameplay. For example, when playing basketball, dribbling and throwing the ball will be considered core mechanics. Scoring points when throwing the ball through the basket is a progressive mechanic. Likewise, scoring more points when outside the three-point line is also a progressive mechanic. Naturally, we can apply this to video games. Take the original Legend of Zelda for the NES. Two of the core mechanics are walking around and stabbing. Two of the progressive mechanics are you lose health when hit by a monster, and monsters die when stabbed enough. Just looking at these few core and progressive mechanics, we can already see an interesting behavior emerge. There's a push and pull, where the player wants to stab the monsters, but they don't want to get hit themselves. Today I'll be focusing on silly core mechanics. Silly progressive mechanics will be featured in a future video. Now that we're done with that surprise crash course, it's time to get silly. Hi, I'm Stijn, project lead at Frog Tribes, currently working on 5 Bucks for the Bus, an open world RPG about life in our modern society. Thanks for tuning in, this is Stijn at work. Before we get into silly core mechanics, let's define what a silly mechanic is. To me, and for the purpose of this video, a silly mechanic is a mechanic which invokes joy regardless of context. A mechanic which is inherently fun on its own. You don't need to involve the game's various systems to appreciate it, whether that is due to the satisfaction it gives, the humor of it, or both. If you look at Untitled Goose Game and its honk button, we can start to understand this a bit better. If you press this button, the goose will honk. Most people hearing that description will think, that sounds fun. Not taking into account why you want to honk in this game, you can still have fun using this mechanic. This is because 1. A goose is a funny animal, and 2. A honk is a funny sound. And of course there's the simple satisfaction that comes with press button make sound. Of course, later on in the game, the honk button becomes a useful tool, but that doesn't take away from its inherent fun. A silly mechanic is something that can be joyful all on its own. So why incorporate silly core mechanics into games? It might sound obvious, but more fun is more good. If you want to make a game which is fun to play, adding mechanics which are inherently fun is always a plus. Though you'd have to carefully consider what impact the mechanic will have on the player's behavior and the experience as a whole. You don't want to undermine the main appeal of the game. There are more reasons for adding silly mechanics to a game. One common function of silly core mechanics is that they give the player something to do between gameplay moments. Even something like ducking in a 2D Mario game is often used to pass the time while waiting for a platform to get close. Pressing down instantly makes Mario take on a funny crouching pose, so it's inherently fun to spam the input. And last but not least, silly mechanics can be used to guide the player. Take the honk button. Honking is an important tool within the stealth gameplay of Untitled Goose Game. You lure the humans to certain locations, creating a blind spot for you to do your mischief in. Because honking is inherently fun, players don't need to be reminded to use its utility as much. Players can also be directed towards interesting parts of a level, following silly interactions like breadcrumbs. Let's look at some more examples in games. I really like The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. It's an action-adventure game where you operate a train, your main mode of transportation between towns and dungeons. While operating your train, you can pull this little cord to sound a whistle. Who wouldn't want to be the one that makes the train go choo-choo? The whistle itself is well designed. How hard you pull the cord has an influence on the volume and pitch of the sound. Its pitch at full intensity also happens to harmonize well with the background music. This makes making the train go choo even more satisfying. As a side note, while we're talking music, did you know that the chugga chugga of the train's wheels matches the background music too? When moving at full speed, the chugga chugga matches the tempo of the music, functioning as an underlying rhythm. This makes driving the train feel great. Even when you're not doing much, you feel in sync with the world and you can choo-choo to pass the time. Sounding the train whistle also has other functions within the game. You use it to stun certain monsters, to call the floating shop down, and to operate ancient technology, just to name a few. So having it be attractive to use is a plus. Yo Noid 2 might be a bit of a deep cut. It's a free 3D platformer, a fan sequel to the infamous Yo Noid on the NES. It's quite fun and free to play. I'll link it below. One interesting feature is the game's dab button. At any time you can make the Noid dab. You inevitably run into moments where you know you can't be saved. It's in these moments that a good old dab makes you feel a bit better. It makes it look like you intentionally threw yourself into imminent death. Super Mario Odyssey is another great example. Some of its more subtle silly core mechanics are Mario kicking anything he touches, Mario being able to sit on a bench and chill out, and Mario dancing when next to a stereo set. Kicking stuff makes navigating levels a bit more engaging, as well as luring you to interesting spots. Sitting on a bench is, at least in one instance, necessary to obtain one of the game's moons, and the dancing is there because, Super Mario Maker uses silly mechanics to inspire the player. Mario Maker is essentially a level design tool, so its developers had to pull out all the stops in trying to make it fun. One way was to make almost every interaction a little silly. Thanks to its sound design, animation and general aesthetic, everything is fun to click, regardless of whether you need to be clicking it. This does not only make using Mario Maker more fun, it also inspires you to use assets and tools you might otherwise ignore. Because the act of using anything is presented in such a silly way, you get curious. What will happen when I press this? What will happen when I combine these things? This is very important because Mario Maker as a tool is chock full of assets and features to make use of. The developers want the players to explore using every single one of them, and Silliness is a great aid in that. We also included some silly mechanics in our game, Here Comes Niko. Here Comes Niko is the 3D platformer for tired people, available on Steam and Nintendo Switch. A lot of the silly mechanics in Niko are there to make the world feel more dynamic, and to make walking around fun. You can kick and destroy a lot of stuff. Fine-tuning the physics on boxes and trash bags took some time. They needed to fly off but still feel weighty for it to be satisfying. The stacks of paper turn into a particle effect when you walk into them. This needed to feel explosive and paper-like at the same time. For all of them, the sound effects needed to be realistic as well as having a kick to them. There's also an office-themed level where you can jump on the desk chairs. It's supposed to evoke a jumping on the bed sort of feeling. It serves no other purpose. A problem that we managed to solve in a silly way is one of collisions. You see, there are many props and characters that fill up the world. If we gave them all a collision box, walking around would turn out cumbersome. Our solution was to make everything bounce when the player walks into it. Thanks to the squishy animation and various sound effects, it turned out quite satisfying. We suddenly saw players actively bumping everything in sight. We even attached an achievement to it. You only get it after bumping into frogs over 1000 times. A minor silly detail is the snack machine. If you dive into it, it'll pop out a snack. There's also the crab band in Tadpole HQ. They meet near a giant marimba. You can play it by jumping onto it. You can also make the crabs play their instruments by bumping into them. You can create different grooves depending on when you do. You can offset their parts in different ways. all completely unnecessary, we just put it in because it seemed cute and fun. Hey, we make games. You've already seen a bit of Here Comes Niko. Make sure to check it out if it seems like something for you. We are currently developing 5 Bucks for the Bus, an RPG about life in our modern society. We also run a Discord where you can chat with us and take part in Game Club. Game Club is like a book club for games. We choose a new game to discuss every month. This month, we're talking
Doronko Wanko.
So come and join in on the conversation. Anyhow, let's move on. So what's the point of silliness in games? In a medium where fun is a common indicator of success, silliness adds inherent value. But its uses shouldn't be understated. They're a great way to keep players engaged when they'd otherwise be doing something menial or when they'd simply be waiting on something. They are also useful in guiding the player. The inherent fun of them can attract a player without having to offer them tangible benefits. And if we're honest, a little silliness doesn't hurt when you're trying to market a game. In the end, it can help to get a little serious about silliness in games. There's also a great GDC talk that touches on a similar subject. It's called Put a Face on It, The Aesthetics of Cute. I'll link it below. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.